He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
So the government found in 1971 that it could not sign the human rights for Indigenous people because of the Wardens. So they tried to get rid of us. So in 1971 they called a meeting and we'd lost.
In the last episode, we heard about the point in New Zealand history where the government nearly did away with the Wardens on the grounds that they were a racist police force.
Ultimately, the New Zealand government and the United Nations decided they weren't, and the Wardens went on to Manaaki another day.
This episode, we're going to look into the relationship between the Māori Wardens and the actual police a little more closely.
I take my hats off to the police because they did everything to ensure our manuhiri, we're still being looked after. Our whānau was still being looked after.
Starting with Sophie Tamuni, a Māori warden and the chair of the Mauao Wardens in Tauranga.
She's working at the base of Mount Maunganui. Some of the tracks have been closed and her team of wardens sit at the cordoned off areas, making sure no walkers or joggers enter the area. It's a health and safety thing, and it's a bit frustrating.
Yeah, I am back. I see some people keep coming down the track. Yeah, they're actually walking down the track.
And Sophie has brought along her mokopuna too, her grandkids.
No. All right. Okay. You want to go in? All right. They're playing.
One of our producers for this podcast, Justine Murray, is here too. And she's keen to talk to Sophie about something that happened several years ago, but something that's hard to forget.
Our role immediately was to calm our whānau. And Awhi, our tūpapaku who had been left and where she had been, there's no other word for it, where she had been killed.
In late February of 2018, at Huria Marae in Tauranga, Ariana Mahu was tragically killed. It was an unprovoked attack. Ariana had been part of the ringawera team, the workers in the wharekai, the kitchen.
And this happened during the tangehanga, or the 3-day funeral, of Dr. Morehu Ngātoko Rahipere, Justine's koroa, who was her grandfather's brother.
Hundreds of mourners have paid their respects at his tangi, and then this horrific act happens.
It's unfathomable. The kitchen becomes a crime scene. The forensic team and the police are on site, and the wardens are called in.
So 7 years later, Justine is with Sophie at the Mount to not only share their own memories of what happened, but how the wardens and the police supported the whānau together.
I shared the story with the producers Amber and Murdoch about 3 weeks ago. We were just having an evening session talking about the podcast and how we're going to structure it. And out of the, not out of the blue, maybe it's been sitting with me for quite a while, I thought, wardens, police, I thought, my gosh, I've had that experience personally. And I thought, shall I share this story on this podcast? And I think I'm okay to talk about it. Good. If you're okay to talk about it.
I'm okay to talk about it, yes.
A young man from Ngāti Kahu, from Tauranga Moana, killed Ariana Mahu, a beautiful 30-something-year-old woman from Taranaki, from Ngāti Kahu, from Motiti Island, from Tauranga Moana. I had seen her half an hour before I left, which was about 10:30 at night. And it was a tragic, horrific event. Anyway, the wardens are there at 12:30.
As soon as we got the call, I got our team out there. The ones that I knew that could handle that situation, mainly because we had been trained by the police in the areas of tragedies dealing with whānau. Their main job was to ask the whānau not to enter the scene area.
Which is the wharekai.
Which was the wharekai. And as soon as our wardens turned up and the wardens spoke to the whānau and said, hey guys, give them a chance. They needed to do what they needed to do with regards to forensics and figure out what had actually happened there.
Yeah, the wharekai, obviously where we eat, had now become a crime scene. What was your role immediately?
Our role immediately was to calm our whānau because they were frantic. Whānau were frantic with their whānau line in the kitchen. Whānau were frantic with how were they going to prepare their kai for their kraua.
The next day, because the next day was the nehu, which is the hakari day.
Yes, our police team just needed time to get that sorted and out of the way so that our people get back into their kitchen.
And the police would have had to understand that you've got 500 people turning up to the mother the next day, a fridge full of food, plus a crime scene. Were they under huge pressure to meet the whānau's wishes? Could there have been...
Absolutely were under huge pressure. And they knew that they had to deal with that directly, get it over and done with, but also show respect to both our tūpapaku then at the same time.
So a tūpapaku means the deceased person.
And they did that, communicating with the wardens to the whānau.
Yeah, because we now have our kraua in the whare tūpapaku, and now we have another tūpapaku with the death of Ariana.
Yes.
And the next day I went to the marae. I think I saw a couple of police cars. I saw the yellow ticker tape with police crime scene around our wharekai. You know, how did it feel? How does it feel as a warden protecting a crime scene?
It was really hard for us because we're there for our people, not for, I guess, the police, to be honest. We were there for our people, but we also understood the job that they had to do in order to find out what had actually happened to our tūpapaku on that evening. It was also hard for us dealing with immediate whānau to both of our tūpapaku, who were, nobody knew, what was going to happen.
Did you feel, Sophie, that the wardens are trained properly for this kind of tragedy? And
yes, our wardens are trained. Certain ones, the ones that I had there, they were fully trained. They had been trained with the police for near on 6 years. So every year we have refresher courses in those areas. It's making sure we do our job in looking after our people, but also us making sure that we're looked after.
This kaupapa is about the wardens and how they fit into police, what we might consider mostly police events. Well, actually, no, the wardens are there.
We're called in for those events, for homicide events, for accidents, literally accidents on the road, fatalities. We've had to go in and just ask the public, to give space to those services that are trying to sort what's happened. The wardens are called in for all of those, but we are fully trained by the police to be able to handle that. So far as looking after our hinenaro ourselves,
mental well-being
and what we've had to deal with, we 100% we ensure we have a kraua of that area to sit with us, a kuia to sit with us, to have our whakamoimati with them so that we're able to leave wairua cleansed.
Wairua cleansed. And speaking of other wairua cleansing things, in kaitiakitanga you have your beautiful mokopuna to come home to your mokopuna, it must relieve that heaviness.
Oh, absolutely.
That was heavy.
Yeah, that was a lot. But here's why it's important to our story. There's a line, a space maybe even, where wardens and police meet. And it can be incredible.
And it is incredible when it works, but it's nuanced. And it hasn't necessarily come easily. A lot of people on both sides of the line have done a lot of work to make that space.
So we put in a call to someone who's walked on the police side of that line for more than 40 years.
Kia ora.
Morena matua Wally, it's Murdoch and Dr. Amber Hamill here.
Morena.
Morena. Tēnā koutou katoa ko te wārihi haumaha tōku ingoa no Ngāti Ngararanui tōku hapu I roto I te waka o te aroa, engari I te taha o tōku pāpā no Tainui waka, manga kāretu, Ngāti āhuru no Tainui waka. So, Wally Haumaha, I've been the Deputy Commissioner of Police for the last 5 years. I've been in the New Zealand Police for 40 years. I've been proud to have established, alongside of my colleagues, dedicated structure of iwi liaison officers up and down the country and looking at succession planning and bringing creditable leaders of Māori descent and Pacific ethnic through the organisation.
Matua Wally has been around Wardens for years, like he said, but I wanted him to understand why we were making this podcast and why we wanted to talk to him in particular. We know that your advocacy has always been very strong for Māori Wardens.
Oh, look, it's been an absolute privilege to be working alongside Māori Wardens ever since I became aware of the issues. My association with the Wardens is much like yours. As a young fella, going to university at Waikato back in the early days, 1900 in Fraser. I was at university when one of my aunties in Hamilton was a Māori warden, my auntie Judy Haumaha, and she was probably one of the strongest Māori wardens that I'd come across in my entire time.
So what's your connection with Joyce Williams, and do you know Joyce and Gloria?
Oh, look, I had the most respectful relationship with Joyce in Hamilton, and she was just fantastic to work with. There was never any issues that we couldn't go to Joyce on, and any support. From my perspective anyway, I have nothing but the absolute admiration for the voluntary work that they've done, and they've had to fight tooth and nail to stay afloat in many respects. And so any help that we could give them in terms of transport, getting the vans for them, getting funding, yeah. And so, that hasn't stopped, and I hope the funding going forward won't stop.
Wardens have limited powers, so they have to rely first and foremost on manaakitanga, that is, looking after everyone in all sorts of situations. They have a go softly approach, persuasion, the right words. It's more a side-by-side, let's do this together approach. Police have all those tools, of course, but they also have the full force of the law behind them. They can arrest and come down harder.
But Wardens and the police actually have a productive relationship going back decades. Part of what Wally has done in his time in the police is boost support for the Wardens, access to resources like vehicles, radios, uniforms, training, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. And here's Gloria Donnan giving us a little insight into how this played out in the day-to-day.
I had a swipe card and access to the police station. We had the use of unmarked police vehicles. So you'd tend the line up at night so that you'd get the information of, like if there were stolen cars or just while we were on our patrols. We all had our own call signs, so when we talked to COM, we had to learn police code, so you knew when they were talking on the RT what it was and things like that. So if you attended a job, you called them up and let the COM know that you were going to be going to that job so they'd know where you were.
This is some pretty chic by jail operations here.
Yeah, but with a warden flavour. Gloria told us about how at closing time the wardens would work with punters leaving bars and clubs to go home.
Between the 2:30 and 3:30 a.m. in the morning, the police line the middle of the road from Wood Street to Collingwood. They just stayed down the Wood Street end and they would watch both sides of them coming out of the nightclubs. Then I'd have wardens walking Hood Street because they were on Victoria Street. And they used to say to me, Glor, why don't you come and stand in the middle of the road with us? I said, because that's not what Māori wardens are about. Māori wardens are about, mixing with the community and talking to people and that. And I said, if you're there, and they've come out of, it's closed and they're standing there, and you go up and say, oh, kia ora, how was your night, You talk to them and they, oh, I had a good night, or how are you getting home? Oh, waiting for our sober driver or whatever. And that's just what we did, just made a conversation. Please stand there and watch them. Well, that to me is not, communicating when they're just standing there looking up and down the street and that. But as soon as a fight erupts, outside the club, they're there. Next thing, hello, see hands go behind the back and get put into the back of the police van. Off you go. But yeah, they maintain peace and order, but I don't see them mixing like the wardens do and having a conversation.
That's interesting because it speaks volumes about their body language and how they present themselves in a situation like that. I just want to delve a little bit deeper with the police. That relationship with police, it sounded like it was quite cohesive at one time. But it also, I can hear in the way that you're talking, that the police had a lot to learn from wardens as well.
Oh, yes, they did. And it depends on who's in the management team and the attitude of that person who's in charge.
So the police bring training and resources to the party, but the wardens bring something the police just can't.
God forbid if we ever lose that heart for the people that the wardens bring in terms of their day-to-day work.
I love that you articulate it in such a way, because what you're really talking about is that as Māori, and Māori wardens, they understand their communities. You were talking about they know the people that are in their communities. They have a way of approaching that is very much different to law and order, and it's on more of a personal level that they will approach a situation, and not so much on a law and order approach. I think that's what you're getting at.
Totally. Yes, and as I say, I often used to talk about an incident where all of these young people were almost on the verge of fighting with a police officer, and they were having all of these issues, and the police officer was probably about to lose his temper and start arresting a few people, and in stepped one of our Māori wardens, came to the assistance of the police officer, spoke to the young kids, settled them down, and then went back to speak to the police officer, and the police officer said, my God, how did you do that? And the response from the Māori wardens was, I just spoke to them. I just talked to them.
It sounds so obvious when he says it, And that's a great story. But the police-warden relationship isn't always so collegial.
This is Miriam Paidama, chair of the Morrinsville Māori Wardens. She has a pretty different take on the interface between wardens and police.
The best part for me was intervening when your own people are getting dealt with by police the wrong way, and I won't stand for that. I intervene. And I'm not supposed to, but I do.
How do police respond to you when you intervene?
I don't work alongside them much because I don't like them. I have a hard time interacting with them. I would rather help those in need.
I suppose this is interesting because it's been an interesting conversation that we've had in the past, that the way police deal with situations is...
Well, I don't like it when they think it's good to treat people like crap. I don't like that. And I used to be a security guard, and I seen too much. Nah, it's not happening.
And obviously you're talking about incidents that you have to intervene in is when police seem to be overhanded.
Yeah. They're not animals. People are not animals. And they don't need to be treated like animals.
What would be the most beneficial thing that wardens do that the police could take on?
I have no idea. Because I work different to a police officer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they really need to do?
Do what we do. We awhi the people. You don't see a lot of them that do that. And that's wrong. I've seen a lot. And I will intervene.
The point is, it would be oversimplifying matters to say that all Māori wardens and all police have a productive, respectful working relationship.
As with all things warden, there are as many permutations of the relationship as there are wardens.
So there are wardens and police who happily work hand in glove, and others who don't work together at all, and lots of arrangements somewhere in between. But maybe it's not always crystal clear what the wardens are there for and what the police are there for, and where those two roles cross over. There are plenty of wardens we spoke to who said it's not the best use of wardens' time to be working as security guards protecting shops or big businesses, for instance.
Dr. Aroha Harris, who we met in a previous episode, has a great way of describing how the relationship works when it's at its best.
The general level, it was kind of stamp out mischief before it becomes a crime, I think, is one of the...
The line between mischief and trouble.
Yeah.
Here's how Joyce's daughter and Māori warden herself, Gloria Dornan, described it.
You need to be aware of your surroundings, how you need to come down on their level and work with them so you have a better outcome. That sometimes, even when we were patrolling, I would hear a call over the RT about, they need to break up a party. And then they'd call me, Gloss, meet me at so-and-so, the one that just came aside, driving the unmarked police car. That was around part of the Māori Community Development Act. Māori wardens can enter the premises provided there are 2 Māori people there. For the police to enter, they need a search warrant. So to utilise that, I would go first. They would stay on the road and I'd knock on the door. Say, the noise controller coming. The police are outside. If they don't, if you don't calm down your party, there'll be no party. Okay, fire. So because next time it won't be me coming, it'll be the noise control with the police officer. They're going to confiscate that stereo. So instead of there being a altercation when the police arrive, because when they see them, it's like their backs go up straight away. What are you here for? What do you want? What have we done? They're just that. Whereas if the Māori warden's going, we're of the same race. I can't find what you're here for. You want to come and have a drink? I was like, no, I'm working. You want a cup of tea? No. I just come to let you know this is what's going to happen. Just come over the radio. They're going to come and take your stereo if you don't go take that noise down. Too many complaints.
There's more of a human touch to wardening than there might be to policing.
So it sounds like the Kirikiriroa police and the wardens got on great, but is this just a local thing?
Nah, Wally says he was setting up these relationships all over the Motu in the mid-2000s.
In the latter stages inside of policing, I did travel the country from north to south with the then Commissioner of Police, Howard Broad. Now, Howard and I travelled extensively right across the country, visiting marae to marae and asking our people what it is that we could do to work together and how could we, prevent a lot of our people entering into the criminal justice system, and if they did get in, how could we get them out, and was there better ways and means of dealing with situations on the street rather than the police trying to arrest our way out of every situation. And the kōrero that we had at that time was it was absolutely heartening to have this type of engagement with our people from north to south. The long story short, Howard said to me back in 2007, how many wardens have we got across the country? And at that time we did a little bit of a survey, and I think there was up to about 900 wardens nationally. Some were warranted, some were unwarranted, and I think there may have been around 400 to 500 at a push that perhaps could have been warranted.
Okay, warranted, not warranted, warrants. They just, everywhere you look, we keep coming back to warrants. I think it's time.
So a warrant is a document issued by a legal or government official, like a judge or minister. And this document authorises another person or body to carry out some action or duty, right?
So, a piece of paper.
Yeah, a piece of paper with writing on it from a special person.
A permission slip.
A permission slip, precisely. In the case of Māori wardens, these permission slips come from the Minister for Māori Development.
Yep, and today, in 2025, that's the Honourable Tama Potaka. A warrant means that you can officially work as a Māori warden under the, you guessed it, Māori Community Development Act 1962. This act, as we know, gives the wardens powers. They can take the car keys of an intoxicated person, if they're Māori, or the wardens can ask licensees to stop serving alcohol to intoxicated individuals, again, if they're Māori. Warrants. Done.
Okay, so where are we?
Wally. He's just counted the number of warranted wardens across the country and he's chatting with Howard Broad.
And so Howard said, look, how can we work closely with the Māori wardens? And, is there a way of bringing them closer alongside of police? We've got a huge community resource. We've got people who are out in the community who know our people. What better relationship and partnership could we form with an organisation that had a legislative framework to be able to enter hotels if people were intoxicated, etc., and work alongside of them, given that alcohol was one of our, key sort of pillars of misery inflicted on our people through domestic violence, through a whole range of social issues. So we did.
And this loops back to what we were talking about before and what Gloria described about having access to vehicles and comms and funding. But this was a reciprocal relationship. Unsurprisingly, the wardens had a lot to offer the police.
Oh, look, 100%. I mean, we were totally excited by the relationship. Only, when you see we had training groups, so, at one training session at the police college, it might have been Ngāti Porou, in the second train, it might have been Ngaitahu, it might have been Te Aroa, it could have been Waikato Tainui, so having different tranches of wardens coming in and training alongside of our staff, but then also building that relationship and that trust that we could partnership together and work on the problems that our people understood perfectly what was going on.
Wally told us this story about having the wardens and the police recruits in the training college at the same time. It was a little tense. Two different uniformed organisations kind of up in each other's face, but the wardens, well, they did some high Viz Manaaki.
Our wardens would be accommodated in the police barracks, and to the point where some of our wardens, who were parents, grandparents, so on, And some of the older Māori women, the recruits would go in and they would do their washing, and they would have to do their washing and leave their washing. And of course, some of our queers and the Māori wardens would go up. They would take their washing out of the washing machines. They would wash them. They would dry them. They would fold them. And when the recruits came back, they said, "Holy heck, is all our gear here." And it might have been a little thing, but tell you what, it went a long way to building the relationship and the trust and confidence, of having our Māori wardens in the police college.
There were times when this relationship with the wardens opened doors for the police.
I would go to Hamilton. Joyce would allow me to go to the Māori wardens whare, and we would sit inside of that, me and a leader of a gang, just talking about keeping communities safe, looking at turning lives around, looking at what he could do. This was a person who spent 30 years in prison and said, Wally, I've wasted my life and I don't want that. If I can contribute with whatever my life is left of my life, how can I make a difference? And he was genuine. He was a genuine leader that really wanted to make a difference. And I always talk about the fact that when him and I met in Kirikiriroa, we were at the Māori Warden's office, and my liaison officers were outside the building thinking, holy heck, what's going on here? Here's a police leader and a gang leader going behind closed doors. What are they talking about? And of course, we were talking about the safety of our families, the safety of our community, but Joyce and them had cooked up a big pot of pork bones and watercress and put the lunch on for the two of us. So the two of us sat there eating pork bones and watercress over the corridor around keeping our people safe, whether you were a gang member, whether you were a community member, or whatever. The whole nature of that conversation was safety and looking after our people. So I'll never forget those times. I mean, they're imprinted in my mind, and the aroha, and operating on their mantra of aroha ki te tangata. They didn't turn anybody down simply because of race, colour or creed. Didn't matter who you were, so long as you had the right heart and the right intent, you could come together alongside of the Māori Wardens.
A lot of work has gone in on both sides to sharing their knowledge, leaning into and learning from each other's skills.
There's a lot of love between New Zealand Police and the Māori Wardens, and they recognise one another's strength. And what we discover is total respect from New Zealand Police, and that, in Joyce's case at least, it goes both ways.
On the next episode of Viz Manaaki,
I go out in the field with the Akarana Māori Wardens to see the work they do firsthand.
We're going to have grace first for all of them out there.
the wardens and local community groups come together to share a kai and a kōrero with anyone who needs it.
That's on the next episode of Viz Manaaki.
Kia ora, thank you so much for listening.
Thanks to Sophie Timoni, Wally Haumaha, Dr. Aroha Harris, Gloria Dornan and Miriam Paidama. Viz Manaaki was written by me, Murdoch Ngaho.
And me, Amber Hamill.
Thanks to our producers, Justin Murray and William Ray, executive producer Tim Watkin, production coordinator Brianna Uritich Greg.
Thanks to Mark Chesterman, the engineer for this episode.
And big props out to our Auckland studio engineer, Corey Fuimaono.
Find and follow Viz Manaaki on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.